What if I told you that a simple $50 investment could one day turn into $5,000? Right now, that might sound unbelievable, maybe even impossible, but stick with me, because this isn't a story about luck. It's a story about strategy, timing, and knowing exactly where to put your money. Welcome back to Wealth Unlocked, the place where we reveal the hidden steps most people overlook when trying to grow their wealth. Today, you're about to see how a seemingly small, ordinary decision can lead to extraordinary results. And along the way, Eileen's share a few secret tips that most investors will never tell you, insights that could change the way you think about money forever. It all started with someone just like you. They weren't a financial wizard. They didn't have a six-figure income, and they certainly weren't handed an inheritance. What they had was curiosity and a willingness to take small, calculated steps. $50, that was all they had to start. It was money that could have gone toward dinner, coffee, or a night out, but instead, they chose to invest it. And here's the key: most people underestimate what small investments can do if you give them time and direction. This is where Wealth Unlocked comes in, guiding you to see the unseen opportunities that exist around you every day. The first step was research. Not the kind of research where you glance at charts and numbers for 5 minutes, real research. They spent hours learning, reading, and watching how small amounts of money could grow in overlooked markets. They discovered strategies that didn't require thousands of dollars, insider connections, or a risky gamble. They found an avenue where a $50 commitment could generate tangible returns if approached the right way. And here's the part most people miss. The magic isn't in throwing money around it, as in understanding the rules of the game that others ignore. By spotting patterns, timing their moves, and staying patient, they were able to plant the seed that would grow exponentially. But patience alone wasn't enough. They needed to act. That's the tricky part. Wealth Unlocked isn't just about ideas, it's about execution. They took that $50 and placed it in an investment they could manage, understand, and monitor. It wasn't glamorous, it didn't require a fancy office or a financial advisor with a suit and tie. It was accessible, manageable, and most importantly, it had the potential to multiply. And while the first few weeks didn't bring fireworks, they stuck with it. Each day, they monitored progress, learned from minor setbacks, and adjusted strategies. That tiny, ordinary $50 investment began to gain traction, slowly, almost invisibly, until one day, the growth became undeniable. As the weeks passed, that initial $50 started to do something incredible. Not overnight, not with some miraculous spike, but steadily, quietly, like a snowball rolling down a hill, gaining momentum with each rotation. This is where most people get it wrong. They expect instant results, a sudden windfall. But real wealth, the kind that sticks, grows in layers, step by step. Wealth Unlocked has always emphasized this. The secret isn't in chasing quick wins. It's in compounding small victories over time, and this story proves it. The first $100 seemed like a milestone, almost unbelievable. They started to see the impact of reinvesting, of letting the money work for them instead of sitting idle. They discovered something fascinating. By understanding where to place their funds and by being patient and consistent, growth accelerated naturally. It wasn't magic, it was psychology, strategy, and timing. Each decision reinforced the next, creating a chain reaction. And here's a tip that most investors overlook: they didn't just throw money at an opportunity, they studied risk meticulously. They knew which moves were smart and which could derail the process. Now comes the part that surprises most people. When you start with something small, the temptation to give up is enormous. A few days of stagnation, a minor dip, or a friend's skepticism can make you doubt yourself. But here's the turning point: this investor didn't quit. They treated setbacks as lessons, adjusting strategies carefully. They learned about patience, about emotional discipline, about the hidden power of compounding knowledge as much as compounding capital. This is exactly why stories like these are featured on Wealth Unlocked, because they aren't just about money, they read about mindset. And mindset, more than anything else, determines whether a small investment becomes a life-changing return. By the third month, their $50 had turned into over $200. It was a modest sum, yes, but the pattern was clear. Momentum had started to take over. They began exploring additional avenues, carefully branching into opportunities that complemented the original investment. And here is a secret tip most people miss. Diversification doesn't have to be complicated or expensive. Even with a tiny starting amount, smart diversification allows your money to grow faster and with more stability. Each step of the journey builds confidence, teaching lessons that textbooks rarely cover. Every decision reinforces the belief that small, deliberate action can lead to monumental results. And then, just when things seemed like they were picking up speed naturally, an unexpected insight changed everything. A method overlooked by casual investors, a tweak in strategy, something so simple yet so powerful it unlocked exponential growth. And this is the kind of insight you can only catch when you pay attention to the small details, when you're persistent, when you refuse to treat money like a gamble and instead treat it like a tool. That's the lesson from Wealth Unlocked. It's not just about the dollars you invest, it's about how intelligently you place each one and how consistently you learn from every movement in the market. By the sixth month, what started as $50 had quietly grown into nearly $1,000. Imagine that what once felt like pocket change was now a tangible sum with the potential to change lives. And yet, the most astonishing part wasn't just the numbers, it was the realization of how small, consistent actions could snowball into something much larger. This is why Wealth Unlocked exists, to show that ordinary people, with ordinary amounts, can achieve extraordinary results if they understand the right approach. At this stage, the investor began noticing patterns that few others see. They realized that timing, not luck, was the hidden driver of growth. Certain choices amplified returns dramatically, while careless decisions could have slowed the momentum. They became keen observers, not gamblers. They learned the value of waiting for the right moment to reinvest, of reading market signals, and most importantly, of trusting the process. And here's an insight you won't hear from most advisors. Small, disciplined adjustments compound faster than big, risky baits. This is the hidden lever that transformed $50 into thousands. As the numbers climbed, curiosity became a powerful motivator. Each new milestone brought excitement, yes, but also reflection. The investor began journaling every step, noting what worked and what didn't. They shared insights with friends who were curious, realizing that financial literacy is as much about knowledge as it is about action. Wealth Unlocked emphasizes this principle constantly. The best investments are not just in dollars, but in learning how money moves, how opportunities unfold, and how personal discipline shapes outcomes. Every new insight added fuel to the momentum, and the growth curve started bending sharply upward. Then came the tipping point, the moment where compounding revealed its true power. By the end of the first year, the $50 investment had multiplied fivefold, reaching $5,000. The transformation wasn't sudden, it was the result of hundreds of deliberate choices, each one building on the last. And here's the real takeaway. Anyone can replicate this if they adopt the same mindset, the same discipline, and the same willingness to learn from small beginnings. It's not a fairy tale, it's a formula that works in the real world. And there is one final secret that made all the difference. This investor didn't stop at just the initial success. They reinvested wisely, used lessons learned to explore other opportunities, and applied strategies that kept growth consistent. Wealth Unlocked shows stories like this not to promise overnight riches, but to prove that understanding, patience, and strategic action turn even the smallest resources into life-changing results. What once was $50 is now a gateway, a demonstration of how intelligence and persistence unlock wealth that most people think is out of reach. Now, as we reflect on this journey, it's easy to see how a simple $50 decision became a $5,000 reality. But the real value isn't just the numbers, it's the mindset, the habits, and the insights gained along the way. Wealth Unlocked shares stories like this to remind you that wealth isn't reserved for the lucky, the well-connected, or the highly educated. It's available to anyone willing to take small, consistent, and intelligent steps and to treat money as a tool rather than a gamble. Think about it, $50 is something almost everyone has at some point. And yet, how many people let it sit idle, unused, or wasted on fleeting pleasures? The lesson here is that even the smallest investments, when guided by knowledge, patience, and strategic action, can compound into extraordinary outcomes. This isn't speculation, it's practical, repeatable strategy. By studying patterns, reinvesting wisely, and being mindful of timing, you can turn seemingly insignificant resources into meaningful wealth. That's the kind of insight Wealth Unlocked exists to provide, but let's go a step further. Imagine what could happen if you applied these principles to multiple areas of your finances: emergency funds, retirement accounts, side ventures, or even learning new skills that increase your earning potential. The same principles that turned $50 into $5,000 can be scaled, multiplied, and adapted. The difference is that most people never start. They wait for the perfect opportunity, the big break, or a windfall that may never come. Meanwhile, the smart, the persistent, and the informed quietly build momentum, step by step, opportunity by opportunity. So here is the ultimate takeaway: the path to financial success isn't paved with luck. It's paved with action, knowledge, and persistence. That $50 investment wasn't magical, it was methodical, strategic, and disciplined. And now, it's proof that anyone, regardless of starting point, can grow wealth beyond what they imagined. Wealth Unlocked will continue to bring you stories like this, real, actionable, and inspiring, because the real secret to success isn't in waiting for a miracle, but in creating one smart decision at a time. The next time you see a small opportunity, remember this story. Remember that $50, when treated with insight and patience, can transform into something extraordinary. And most importantly, remember that your journey to wealth starts with the first step, however small it may seem.